it's way too early for this. It for those Iconics wrestling nerds out there, if you're watching this, you can see that normally it's not so bright in my room because we record at nighttime on a Friday evening, but we are giving you the exclusive of a Sunday morning review. Because why? We love you guys. Also, there may or may not have been some miscommunication on my part. But hello, all you Biconics wrestling nerds out there, and welcome to another episode of the Takedown Troupe reviews for TNA Wrestling. This is our weekly TNA Wrestling review show. I am your host, Mikey. Joined with me this week is Andrew. The duo here is going to get you through TNA this week. Shout out to Will, who is currently recovering from the flu. We wish him a speedy recovery and to take rest. And Will, if you watch this later, just know it's okay. We totally understand. You don't have to feel bad about it. We love you and we're excited for you to recover and join us back again this upcoming week, hopefully. So, without further ado, this was a pretty quick show to get through. This was the last of the Orlando tapings they had back all the way at the beginning in January, which is really crazy to say
Yeah.
because we're in February now. Um, and let's just get right into it. So, we wasted no time this week. We opened up TNA this week with Chris Sabin taking on John Skylar. The one thing I want to say quickly before we go into the actual match itself, I love that Ali's presence was filled here, even with him physically not being there, because this match was being sponsored by Mustafa Ali himself, and we even had the little banner
Yeah.
at the bottom of the whole entire match. I'm just like, I love this character. I love Ali so much. This is great. And the match itself, I keep saying this all the time. I feel that John Skyler and the Good Hands in general, everyone forgets, even though they're kind of the shticky comedic heels kind of thing, where we
Mhm.
know they're going to get their butts whooped half the time. John Skyler, I keep forgetting. I was like, oh yeah, you can actually wrestle because this was a pretty good match. I enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I was surprised that they opened with this considering it had Chris Sabin in it, but it was kind of a good opening, kind of got us excited. I love that they continue the storyline. Obviously why Ollie is other places doing other things because he's trying to take over the world. I'm interested to see where the whole good hands Ali thing goes, if he's actually going to embrace them and use them, or if it's just like a thing of convenience. Um, I'm happy to see the Good Hands back too, because they're another good addition to the tag team division. But it's fun to get to see a little showcase of what they can each individually do. And I think it was a good choice for Saban to get a match in where he gets to pick up another win against a quality opponent. But yeah, the my favorite thing of this was how much it continued the storyline building up to No Surrender, and the mind games that Ollie is playing. Because how irritating does it have to be to have the person that you're going to face for your title be the one sponsoring the match that you're in and have their name plastered all over it? It's great. I loved it.
It's such a small detail that I love it so much. And as you said, Chris Sabin picks up the victory here. This is, in hindsight, looking over the episode after watching it, I was like, this was a good place to put this match
Mhm.
because there was also a lot of other things to unpack
Yeah.
as we went on. So we go from this match and we shoot backstage. Gia is with Alex Shelley. And basically, this promo served up to set up for our main event later, where he was going to
Mhm.
be taking on Eddie Edwards. And essentially, I was disappointed in Alex Shelley because he did not. There was a beautiful moment where he could have said, "It's time to dismantle the system." I'm like, overthrow the patriarchy, but he missed it. I was like, damn it, we were so close, Shelley. We were
Wrong
so close.
promotion. Patriarchy's in a different promotion.
That is fair. Overthrow the establishment. Listen, I'm. It says a lot about me of how I view professional wrestling. I'm like, overthrow the establishment. I'm very, very riotous, and I was like, Alex Shelley, you disappoint me. You were so close to getting it, but and I don't want to bring this up, but as soon as I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I was just like, I know we can't help certain things, but I noticed more and more that Alex Shelley is kind of only really facing with his right side to the camera, and I was
Mm.
just like, Because then I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he has a lazy eye.
Does he? I've never noticed. Now I'm not gonna. Now that's all I'm gonna be looking for.
Well, on top of that too, and I don't know when he speaks too, I noticed that the tongue for certain ethith, like
Yeah, he
it
has a
goes a
little bit
little
of a
close.
lisp.
There's a little bit of a lisp. I was like,
Hmm.
not enough to be a dusty lisp, but
Well, and he often chews gum. Like he'll often have gum, and so I don't
that's the
think
other
that
thing too.
helps.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I never understood. I get why wrestlers chew gum before matches, but I've seen wrestlers like still be chewing gum and still have it by the end of the match. I'm like, that's a choking hazard.
Oh yeah, I can't remember who it was, but I just watched a match. I think I was rewatching a slightly older match from a couple years ago, and I can't remember who it was. But I realized I was like, "What's that blue thing in their mouth?" And then they hit a move, and they got up and they started chewing, and I was like, "Are you wrestling with gum in your mouth?"
Listen, the inner teacher is coming out. It's like you
Yeah,
should not have gum in the wrestling ring. But
but
uh, overall, I still enjoyed this promo,
yeah,
and this was a better promo than what we have been getting so far building up in this feud. I was like, why couldn't we have this? Like it's whatever.
yeah. I'm hoping that obviously we'll get into it later as the night went on. We see more things added to this feud coming up, so I'm hoping we get to see more of that in the promos too. Get to see additional faces back there, so we can kind of get the idea of where they're going to fit into everything. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was good. It was it built. It felt right, and it was quick enough that it didn't feel like it went on too long.
No. So from here, we go into our first knockout match of the evening. So this is a rerun of Tasha Steeles and Zaya Brookside. So this is the second time they're facing
Hmm.
each other. At first, I didn't know how to feel about Tasha Steeles' entrance gear. I was just like, huh, this is interesting. But then I was like, you know what? I kind of dig it. I'm okay with
Yeah.
this. And then, of course, Zaya Brookside comes out. She's more ethereal. I was like, okay, cool. This match, I will say, this is probably, I mean, this is only the second time these two faced each other,
Hmm.
but this was definitely better than the first one. Not to say the first one was bad, but I
Hmm.
was like, oh, now they're more comfortable with each other. This is
Yeah.
good. And I love seeing that we're getting healed Tasha back because she wins with a
Hmm.
handful of tights for the
Yeah.
roll up. I was like, I like Tasha when she's a heel. I think that's some of her best work.
Yeah, it was. I have to say, I kind of dug the Cleopatra esque look that she was rocking.
Right.
Um, I just gave her a little bit of like gravitas as she was coming down to the ring, and then I like how it tied into her gear, her actual like in ring gear. Um, yeah, I was not upset about seeing this. Like, I had to think for a second. Like, I know we've seen them in the ring together because they were in the multi-person match, but I wasn't sure if I had seen, and I couldn't remember, and I was like, "Oh no, I swear I've seen this before, but have I?" But I wasn't upset about it, and I like how they played into the idea of like this being kind of a rematch. So it gives me the idea we might see them match up again, which I think is okay because we do need to see some people building up into the like higher rankings for the knockouts division. And I think both of them, Tasha is a great bring back to TNA, and Zaya is a great new addition. So it's fun to get to see them, and obviously the different cities they go to get to see them in the ring together. Um, and I liked that it was a good showcase for Zaya, but also it kind of showed how crafty and dangerous like Tasha can be, because she does have that veteran quality to her. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really fun match. So yeah, I was happy to see it and interested to see how they fit in with the rest of the knockouts division.
Absolutely. And I 100% agree. I'm excited to see these two continue to feud, especially as you mentioned, it's important that, them having Tasha be re signed and then
Hmm.
bringing in and signing Zaya. And I think this is could be a fun little feud outside of a championship picture, which is
Hmm.
something that we want to see for TNA's
Yeah.
divisions, is having feuds that don't require a title to be in there because Lord knows we have way too many other promotions who do that all the time. And I'm like, just have a feud without a title. It's fine.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's gonna be good. Speaking of things being good, I was reminded why I love GYV because we had this backstage segment. ABC is in the back. They're talking about, GYV. They're talking about how they basically recap how we got to this point. I was like, wow, you did that in 1 minute. I'm so happy that you did, like which is smart because in case somebody was tuning into
Yeah.
TNA, I was like, okay, do I have to go watch everything else beforehand? No, this is where we are in the story. This is how we got here, and this is what's going on. And before Chris Bay gets a chance to like talk his smack, GYV come out from behind and they just jump ABC. They start brawling in the hallway with the chairs. A stack of chairs almost fell over, which I got
Hmm.
nervous for. I was like, not the chairs. Somebody's gonna get hurt.
It's funny because as we also review Ring of Honor, Ring of Honor had a tag team attack another tag team, use a road case that was against a stack of trusses, and in this we had a tag team attack another tag team with a
Use
road case
trust.
against a bunch of chairs stacked. And so it was just I was watching it, and they each went after a body part, and so I was watching. I was like, it's really weird how much similarity there are between the episodes in the same week of Ring of Honor and TNA, which is funny because as you mentioned, TNA was recorded weeks ago. So it was just something interesting. I didn't mind it. I didn't feel like, oh, we're seeing the same stuff, because it did tell, both of those things told the story. And it just shows you how the grizzled young vets are. Like, they're just, I mean, they're like soccer hooligans. They're going to come in and they're going to beat you up. And it kind of continued how they won their match the first time that they faced off. And I think this will give some heat, to build up the, like, how mad ABC is gonna be, and it'll be interesting to see if they play into Ace Austin's arm and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I'm really digging this feud, and I like how they're building up to it and spacing it out.
I am too. And I'm very interested to see how we sell that because, as you mentioned, GYV take Ace Austin's arm and then slam the case on it, which is never looks pretty, even if you don't slam it that hard. I'm like, no, don't put pressure on that box. I was like, you're gonna fracture. So it's bringing me nightmares. I was like, no, it's great. I love it though, and I'm super excited. I mean, we have the battle of the alphabet,
Yeah,
in which we're getting their second match next week, which I'm super excited for. So we were reminded of that promo that Frankie Kazarian cut last week, and I was just like sitting here. I was like, "Oh God, I forgot how much I hated this."
yeah, yeah.
But something that I didn't hate is that we had to get an exclusive backstage segment. I had to pause though because we'll get through it, and then I'll tell you why I had to pause. So Frankie Kazarian is walking backstage, which seems to be from last week, and he is confronted by Jake something where he basically tells Frankie, I was like, I don't know what happened to you. I used to look up to you, man. And
Hmm.
Frankie fires back, what do you mean you used to? It's like, I don't know what this version is, but if you want somebody to step up to in the ring, then you better be ready
Hmm.
because you might get your wish as he walks off. And halfway through this, I had to pause while I was watching this because again, I pick up on the weirdest things. I had to pause because I'm like, Jake, do we have dirt on her nose? So I zoomed in. I'm like, oh, that's like a little diamond piercing in the nose. I was like, okay, that's
Oh,
kind of punk. I'm like, that's kind of punk.
yeah. See, I didn't even notice.
Because at first I thought it was a speck on my TV
Yeah,
screen. I was like,
he
what
had a
is
little
this?
piece of glitter.
Yeah, it was like a black onyx rhinestone. I was just like, oh, that's a little that's a little nasal
Yeah.
piercing. Okay, I was like, that's punk rock. I love it.
Well, and it's funny because they hide a lot of Jake some things, and I say they, I mean he it may be how he just sets up his gear. But he's got a huge leg tattoo that he always wears that sleeve over.
Copyright
Um,
Dragon Ball Z doesn't he won't get in trouble.
yeah. But he's got a bunch of stuff around it too and everything. So, but it's one of those things where it's just like interesting to see the little, like, details from life outside the ring, into the ring, and so yeah. But I thought this was cool. I mean, I wouldn't hate seeing a Jake something Kazarian feud going on, as long as Kazarian can give us some better promos going in to give us a reason to actually care about him being a bad guy.
Right. And I think with Jake being his feud for now, because I think the breaking point is going to be Eric Young is going to find a way to get
Yeah.
back into the story because that's where this whole thing stemmed from. And honestly, I'm not going to complain. I mean, there's more Jake something on my screen, and I feel
Yeah.
that we need to utilize him since he signed back with TNA, which I'm super happy about. So, from a wrestling standpoint, while this may not have been my favorite wrestling match, I was just excited because we finally been missing a piece of Speedball Mountain. for the longest time that we finally got to see. So this leads into Mike Bailey taking on Zachary Wentz. This was a fun little match. I enjoyed it. I mean, Zachary Wentz and Bailey, they speedball like they're good. It was just a fun match. Um, I really enjoyed seeing the Rascals continue to be the Rascals.
Yes.
Will's not here, but I enjoy their shenanigans because the only reason Zachary won this match is because Trey Miguel pushed Bailey off the top rope. Is like,
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
And, pick up the win here.
I actually really enjoyed this match. I can't remember how I ranked everything else, but it was definitely in the top matches for me. And like whenever I see Mike Bailey, he has a very unassuming appearance. Um, and I looked back as I was watching this match, and I was like, Mike Bailey does not have a bad match. Like every one of his matches that I've seen, I'm always impressed. I'm always shocked, and it's funny because I've seen him do these things before, but just watching him do them consistently is crazy. Um, and to be fair to that, he's not in there by himself. So I think this was also a really good showing of what Zachary Wentz can do. And I did like the shenanigans that the Rascals keep pulling even in their singles matches because that's the type of heels that they are and they should be utilizing those things. And I don't want to say that I was glad that Zachary Wentz won, but I did like that it shows like you can't fight the Rascals on your own. Like it's really hard, and I think in some ways that shows what Nick Nemeth was able to do. But I really enjoyed that aspect. I also got a kick out of some of the commentary when they were talking about blacking out. And the comment was to Matthew Raywald was, "I wish you would black out every time we do this show." And his response was, "I might if I keep hanging out with the Rascals. I'm really fun. I mean, in a really fun and good way." And it was just like I just love the like little nods to things like that. That it was
It's
just like,
like,
oh my,
I love that. I love the
yeah,
commentary too so much. I love Tom Hannafan and Matthew Raywald.
yeah,
I loved it so much, but let's talk about the moment we've all been wanting
yeah.
so badly because, at Hard to Kill, certain travel issues forbidden one person from being there to help out. But the Rascals, I love that they get into the ring and Mike Bailey's just like, I'm still hurt. They look at him, they look at each other, they look at him, they shrug their shoulders, and then they go to beat him down. They're like, do we want to do this today? Yeah, let's do it today,
Yeah.
which I love. So Zach and Trey, they end up getting, couple licks in, and then the British dad himself, Trent Seven, comes out and comes in for the save. I'm like, Trent, I've missed you so much. I was like, I'm so happy that you're finally here.
It was funny when he came down. Like I don't know if it was the clothes, the way his hair was, or what, but it was funny because I was like, I feel like this is the most he's ever looked like Pete Dunne's older brother or an older version of Pete Dunne.
Yes.
It was just funny.
I loved it too. He comes out to celebrate for a hot 2 seconds and he's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do the save. And then it celebrates and then just jumps into the ring.
Yeah.
Kind of evens it up a little bit, and then Steve Macklin comes in, and then it becomes a 3-on-2. Nick Nemeth's music hit. I wrote this down because I thought it was hilarious. As Nick Nemeth was delivering super kicks to everyone, I saw that when it was Macklin's turn, he ran from the corner, tripped over Trey Miguel,
Yeah.
got back up and then received the super kick. I was like, yes, that is how we recover in professional wrestling because he tripped over.
Yeah. But I kind of liked it because I mean, we had 6 people in the ring.
Yeah.
And 2 of them had just gotten super kicked and were all dazed. And it kind of added to this, like, they were all confident when they were in control, but as soon as things started going out of control, it was like chaos. And so the way he recovered from falling down, it was like it perfectly set him up to get the super kick because he was all off, off balance, and it just left him wide open. And so I know it was a mistake, but it felt real because it was, but he didn't like, he wasn't thrown off by it. So I loved this whole like setup with this feud that we're getting with these six people. It was cool. I really liked the ending to like just seeing them all together.
I feel like this is probably my favorite mistake that I've seen so far this year in
Yeah.
professional wrestling because it was so seamless. Like I trip, get back up, let's do this. Bam, kick in the
Yeah.
face. So good. So there might be some divided opinions, but so we get this little video package promo from Khan himself. And you know what? This is the same character that he was in the previous company. And then, when I was done listening to this promo, I have to say, I kind of dig this direction we're going with Khan for me personally. I was like, I've always wanted to see how he would do on his own with promos. And honestly, I think he did pretty good. I think he did okay. Now, when you couple that with what happened later, I was like, as a whole entire package, I was
Hmm.
like, okay, I can get behind this singles push for Khan or a singles feud for Khan because we technically need more big
Yeah.
powerhouses right now in TNA.
Well, and I feel like he's one of the biggest guys in TNA. I mean, height and mass wise.
Yes.
So it's kind of cool to have a figure like that, especially if he's going to be kind of a more vocal abyss kind of character. Um, and I was there the whole way until the end when he like did his like scream head shake because all I could watch was his ears wiggle. He was doing this thing and his ears were just
I
wiggling the
know
whole time, and
when
I
he
was just
did.
like,
No, I was like, we were so close.
yeah. But all in all, I thought it was good. I think it's much more interesting. I'm much more interested in this than I was as we were winding down from the design. Um and I think like I'm here to see what he's going to do against some of the other like monster figures as we'll see later on in the evening going forward.
Yeah, I was like, sign me up for Khan. And then this is bittersweet because we get. I was really surprised to actually see this match here, like in the middle of the show. I was like, I
Mhm.
felt like we could have had it a little bit closer, but it makes a lot of sense. This was the tag team match: Trinity and Jordan Grace taking on the Shantaraj, which is Giselle Shaw and Savannah
Mhm.
Evans. Trinity's last TNA match for now.
Mhm.
Which is funny because this was taped like the day before she made her return to the
Yeah.
Rumble, which is really weird to see this part, but this match was fantastic, and I think this was a nice way to send off Trinity and her
Mhm.
TNA run here. I mean, the
Yeah.
match itself, I knew what I was getting for. Jordan
Yeah.
and Trinity weren't going to lose, but what a send off for Trinity.
Yeah, I mean, at first when I saw this, I was like, "Why is this not the main event?" Obviously, thinking about the fact that it's a knockouts champion against the number one contender with the former knockouts champion, who's also it's her last match. Um, but then as like things went on, I kind of was like, "Okay, this makes more and more sense the more the evening went,"
Mhm.
because it kind of felt like we had a good set of bookends and this in the middle to really like strengthen it up. It was a good, fun match. I really enjoyed it. And I think part of that was the knowing it was Trinity's last match. Kind of, you could kind of see it in her face when she locked in the finish. Um, I think it was also really fun that they got to wrestle there that evening. And then, even a surprise to Jordan was that they got to then wrestle again the next one at the Royal Rumble. And so it was just a lot of fun across the board. And it was just something that it was like, I just, felt very thankful for the time that we got Trinity. And as sad as I am to see Trinity go, and I'm all here to support her Naomi return because I want to believe that this is what she wants and it's the best for her. So I'm all about that for people getting those things, especially people who really I feel like they really deserve it. And I thought this was a fun match that set up the future for the title, which I feel like the knockouts division especially has been really good about. Like we saw it with like Mickey James leading into it, and when she had to like lose the title, we saw it with Deanna going into Trinity. We saw it with Trinity going to Jordan, and now like we see this like okay, I'm going to leave and go somewhere else to continue my career, but I want to leave you on an upswing. And I felt like that did this, and it kind of set us up, which just made me look that much more forward to seeing Jordan Grace versus Giselle Shaw. So
Yeah, I think this did a good job of making me. I mean, I was excited when we got
yeah.
announced Jordan versus Giselle, anyways. But now seeing this match and then the context of the
Hmm.
digital exclusive, so let's talk about that real quick.
Hmm.
You know, since we are talking about the no surrender match, we get a digital exclusive, which I'm like, now I actually got to pay attention to the social medias for missing information. But Giselle
Hashtag we
fought.
want Scott.
Yes, hashtag we want Scott. And this is still these tapings are still underneath the Scott Demore like regimen. Stay tuned for that video, which will be uploaded tomorrow about our little rant. So we'll just watch that video. We have all the feelings in there, and then we process said feelings over the last couple of days. Hashtag we still want Scott. But at No Surrender, it's going to be Jordan Grace versus Giselle Shaw. I'm a I think they still haven't made it clear, but I'm like, yes, they did say it here. She is using her,
Hmm.
Ultimate X opportunity for this match. And in this little digital exclusive, she is pretty much taking the advice of Gail Kim that she had all those weeks ago. She fired the Chantarage, she fired Jay Vidal, and
Hmm.
she's willing to give Savannah Evans a chance, but she's gonna have to win her next match in order to prove her. I'm like, yes, let's go.
Hmm. Well, and I think if they're gonna have Savannah Evans set up for a match to give Jordan something like to continue build up to the No Surrender show up, like I'm here to watch a Savannah Evans versus Jordan Grace match because that's just another two beefy ladies fighting each other. So that'll be a fun setup and gives us some more opportunity for some shenanigans and storytelling heading into No Surrender. So
Ugh, I'm here for the shenanigans, just like I was here for the shenanigan. This is the best
oh.
backstage. This is the best backstage segment we got this week, and literally, I know life happens, but this is where I'm going to announce it here. Will, I'm so upset that you couldn't be here because this is what Joe Hendry is. Will's a dude, like he's
Yeah.
all our dudes. But let's set this up real quick. So Diener is backstage. He cuts a promo, trying to figure out where he goes now that the design has finally been dismantled. And then AJ Francis walks in, which this kind of fixed the problem we had before. I was like, stop going to Rich Swann. He said no.
Yeah.
So now he's going to go to Diener, which is a heel. I was like, okay, that makes a little more sense now. And he's talking to Diener, trying to get him to, spill about what he knows about
Hmm.
Joe Hendry. And then this was so seamless. Dina's like, "Oh, you mean Joe Hendry?" And then Agent France is like, don't say his name." And then his music like seamlessly plays, saying, "This is like say his name, and he will hear, I believe in Joe Hendry." And then this
Yeah.
cracked me up so much. Joe Hendry does the clap, and Diener does it too, like on like
Yeah.
reflex alone. And AJ Francis broke the four walls, say, "Why are we clapping?"
Yeah.
like,
Why did you clap?
yeah. And
And
Diener looks
Diener's
at his
like,
hands.
I don't know.
I was cracking up so
Yeah.
much. This is so good. And then it got into the other best part about this is that it seems we're inching closer and closer to Joe and AJ, like
Hmm.
continuing this feud and potentially having a match down the line at some point. And this also does something because Joe Hendry just looks at Dean and is like, he, I was laughing too much to write down the insult that Joe Hendry read off of his phone to AJ Francis. I was like, that was
Yes.
harsh. That was so harsh, but that was so good. I loved it. And then as AJ Francis leaves, it's like, all right, bet. Like, I'll see you later. Joe Hendry turns to Diener and is like, what's he seems angry all the time. And then Diener's like, I don't need you speaking for me. And I want
Hmm.
you to touch me. And then walks off. I was like, this is a potential other thread we have for Joe. Listen, I just want more Joe Hendry on my
Yeah.
screen.
If Joe Hendry's got to face Diener in a match just to have to get to see Joe Hendry wrestle and have him wrestle someone and maybe AJ Francis get involved somehow or just to like get more chances to see Joe Hendry wrestle to get to get some more information on him. Like I said, when they first had their first interaction, I think Joe Hendry is a great kind of counter to AJ Francis. I think he has so much hype and enjoyment behind him, it just makes the like dislike for AJ Francis that much stronger, which is what they're going for. I'm interested to see if he's going to be successful ever at recruiting people. Um, but I do like AJ Francis's character in TNA is growing on me more and more of just like seeing the depth, what is this character beyond the surface? And yeah, anytime we get more Joe Hendry, the better. It's I'm here for it. I loved that whole moment. Yeah, he's our backstage promo guy for TNA hands down. So yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. And I thought Diener was also actually a really smart choice because he kind of played well between the two of them, literally and figuratively.
I I'm actually really invested in this AJ Francis Joe Hendry feud. And then if you want to add Diener as a caveat to this whole situation, I'm not going to complain about it too. This was the best backstage segment, and I'm really upset Will wasn't here to talk about this one because this was great. And it kind of just kept going from there because something I really enjoyed too is we get this 2-on-1 match
Hmm.
between Khan and Richard, local Vegas, like local talent Richard Adonis and Ori Gold. This only went like 2 minutes at best.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Khan picks up the victory here, and then we get into my other favorite part. So PCO does his whole entrance, like the orderlies need to come
Hmm.
shock him until back to life. They do, but then Khan's just like, we ain't waiting for him to come back alive. So, PCO ends up coming back alive, but he kind of gets pushed to the side because then Khan goes and throws the orderlies around.
Hmm.
The first one gets pushed to the floor. The second one though got a little bit of height because Khan threw that man and like
Hmm.
he went flying across the stage. I was just like, at this point, I was just like, oh, I forgot. Khan has a lot. He's a big man. You
Hmm.
get thrown by him, you're gonna go fly.
Well, and like to see these two go at each other, I mean, because they went
Mm-hmm.
everywhere, and then security came down to try and break them up, which I'm pretty sure most of the security were the orderlies that just took off all their scrubs and then came running down. But to see them just like toss around security and see them in the ring together and go at each other, like I am down for this happening at No Surrender. Give us some crazy stipulation. I know we
Monsters
just
Ball.
had I know. I was gonna say I know we just had a Monsters Ball with PCO not that long ago.
But let him be the
But
king of Monsters Ball.
yeah, I mean, hey, whatever. Um, but yeah, I think this is a smart choice for both of them. PCO re-signed. He was the first person to re-sign with TNA. And he's still got it being that monster character, and so I think this could be definitely a handoff, kind of that to Khan. And yeah, I let them fight everywhere with everything. I'm down to see them just go crazy.
I think this is a really smart choice because something that we talked about since Bound for Glory is we wanted to see PCO have more feuds than
Hmm.
outside of like because the last feud he had was with Bully Ray, so
Hmm.
that was a hot minute ago, like that was a while ago.
Yeah.
But this is perfect. I was like, listen, every promotion needs at least one big men slapping big men meaty feud, and this happens to be it, and I am here for it. So this we get into the next part. So I loved what we got at the end. I was
Hmm.
disappointed of how short this match was.
Yeah, I was surprised.
I was like, really? We're only giving like seven? Fine, I guess. So this was Alan Angels versus Josh Alexander. I love that we're continuing this new character for Angels, like his entrance music. Now I call that genre of music like butt rock. I was like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like something that a suburban dad would listen to. Like it's just like the heydays of the era of music
Hmm.
we grew up on. I was like, it's very kind of slightly alternative punk, but not really.
Hmm.
It was like butt rocky, which is perfect because now his whole character, he's just a total douche.
Yeah.
Like, which I love. He reminds me if Chris Daughtry decided to be a douche as a rocker. This is Alan Angels' character, which I love. And then I was reminded, I was like, damn, Alan Angels is really short because then Josh Alexander makes his entrance and, the bell doesn't ring. They start fighting. But then when I see the side by side, I'm like, damn, Josh is really tall.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely there. You've got one on the shorter end, one on the taller end, and it just makes Josh look huge. I did like the Angels, because of the size difference and the strength difference. Angels attacked early, and he jumped on him, and then of course he made the classic mistake of gloating too soon. Um, but what I really liked was we're continuing to see a batter Josh Alexander. Like he's mean. He when he went to lock in the ankle lock, he like stomped on the ankle first, then went for the ankle lock. And so I'm interested to see because this seems like where he's started to go since he teamed with Zack Saber Jr. And I kind of want to see that. Like Josh has been the kind of Captain America, which is funny, I guess Captain Canada, of like TNA. But now he's kind of turning into, a little like more not hardcore in the wrestling sense, but he's a little more intense, a little meaner, a little more serious. And it makes sense because he's trying to get back to the top, and all of these people that he's facing are standing in his way of doing that. And so it's like, it's not only professional, but he's kind of taken it personally. So I'm really excited for what we'll get to see from Josh Alexander coming out of that.
I am too. And again, my only real complaint is this was a short match. I
Mhm.
wanted maybe a couple extra minutes, but look, Josh is great. Alan Angels is great. I'm happy that we're seeing Alan Angels back
Yeah.
more, which is something we've wanted for a long time. But then my little wrestling heart got super excited because as the match is ending, Josh is high fiving fans on his way back up the ramp, like heading towards the ramp. And then we see this masked, which I was very smart. It wasn't like a full on like mask
Yeah.
thing. It was just like a face mask. It's like, yeah, there are still people that still wear
Yep.
those post pandemic. And then he just decked the crap out of Josh. I was just like, what the heck? And then he jumps the barricade, throws Josh into the steel steps, takes off the hat, takes off the bandana, and I was not expecting this individual,
No.
but we see a wild Simon Gotch, yelling and spitting on Josh
Yeah.
Alexander, and my little heart exploded with joy.
I
I
mean,
was
you
like,
want to
"Oh
talk
my
about
god.
yeah, you want to talk about a like a hard hitting wrestling match, like Josh
Ooh, let's
Alexander against
go."
Simon Gotch. Woo! Yeah.
Sign me up for no surrender, please.
Yes. Yes.
Let seriously. But yeah, he lays out Josh, he jumps up, and I love that TNA is one of the few companies that doesn't like pretend that we don't know where these people came from because
Mm-hmm.
I love that Tom Hannafan puts Matthew Raywald on the spot. I'm
Yeah.
like, did you know this? It's like, look, me and Gotch teamed in the past. Like, the Vaudevillains were our thing, but I
Mm-hmm.
had no idea he was going to be here. I was just like, yes.
Yeah.
Listen, Simon Gotch is an incredible in ring
Yeah.
performer. And the idea, because I have my rule, I need to see a graphic for it to be official. But
Mm.
if we're getting Josh versus Simon at No Surrender, or if this is what we want to build towards over the next couple of weeks of TNA, please give it to me, Josh. They're just giving Josh like the best opponents right now, and I'm
Oh
here
yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, this was taped before the Scott Demore firing, but I was just like, I would love to see Simon Gotch be a staple in TNA.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. It's a
just,
great place for him.
just give me all the wrestlers that I want to see so bad. But I'm really excited. I thought this was a really fun way to kind of end
Hmm.
this whole entire match plus segment. And now, as weird as it is to say, I'm excited to see a pissed off Josh.
Oh yeah. Oh, I can't wait. And I think it'll play really well into Simon Gotch because Simon Gotch is like, I feel like he, as angry as he was when he attacked, like he wants his opponents to come at him angry because then they're going to make a mistake. They're going to get overly aggressive and he's going to be able to use that to his advantage. And so it's like he's going to egg on Josh and like harass him to get angry at him, and then Gotch will use that to draw him in. And so yeah, I think the two of them going at each other, um like I'd love to see this as like a best 2 out of 3 falls or Iron Man or some kind of match that fits in with some of the other things we already know we're getting for No Surrender, and that fit for that kind of a pay per view. and that really showcases like how brutal these two can make actual like mat wrestling.
I would love to see because I would love to see this be if we're gonna add a stipulation if they choose to. I would love to see. Yeah, I think the Iron Man match I think would probably be a good idea because I just want to see these two like
Mhm.
wrestle.
Yeah.
Like I'm here for good stipulation, like a street fight and things like that. But
Hmm.
I actually would rather have more of the wrestling mat style based
Hmm.
stipulations, like an Iron Man
Or
or
like a
like
submission match, like the only way to
submission.
win is to get your opponent to tap or something.
Hmm.
Like, yeah.
Like the ideas in our brains makes me super excited to see what kind of feud we end up getting. So from here, we quickly get like the bumpers for next week. We're getting the second, 2 out of 3 match series for the tag titles. We get some promotion that, we're going to see some more knockouts action next week. I was just like,
Hmm.
I'm excited. And then we get to our main event, which was given a pretty good chunk of time for this
Yeah.
one. Eddie Edwards versus Alex Shelley. It's just a singles match, no stipulations. For me personally, this was my match of the night. I was just like, this is the Eddie Edwards I want to see. Like, we've talked at nauseum about his feud with Frankie Kazarian, how it went on for way too long for both of
Yeah.
them. But this is the back to basics Eddie that I know him to be. This was just wrestling, like no shenanigans. Just he's going to kick you with the knee and he's going
Hmm.
to hit you. He's going to try to destroy you. And I love that Alex Shelley is kind of this in between,
Hmm.
not total face, not total heel. He's like, I'm not trying to cheap, and I'm gonna, the ref's not looking. I'm gonna kick you in the face. Like
Yeah.
this
Well,
match ruled. I liked it. I
and I
loved it.
like the way that they played into Eddie's injured leg after he kicked the ring post, because it kind of again helped Alex Shelley, compensate for the size difference. This match was more brutal and technical than I expected, and like you said, it's not that I didn't think or know that both of them could go there, but I didn't know if they would in this match. And what it did was it kind of gave me an idea of how intense this feud can be. Because these two just like went at each other, and I really enjoyed it. And I think just like with the Rascals, they're using the system, and especially like Alicia Edwards, really well. Because you're like, yeah, of course, they're the bad guys. They're gonna do what they need to do to win, but it's not coming across as like annoying or anything like that because it makes sense for the characters. It makes sense for the story that we're getting. Um, so yeah, I really enjoyed this match. I thought it was a great setup. It shows how dangerous Alex Shelley can be. Like as he comes after Moose, and Moose is kind of using his faction to try and weaken his opponent, even though he's trying to talk about like he doesn't need to. But I thought it was a great storytelling to get all that happening and leading up to what we got and what we're gonna get more of.
I'm super excited. This match ruled. I also really enjoyed the fact that Alex Shelley had to be quick about how he picked up the win here
Hmm.
because he's realizing it's like, all right, Eddie is actually kind of tough, so I need to finish this quickly and fast. So Eddie tries to go for a Boston knee party. I
Hmm.
still chuckle with the name of that finisher. I love
Yeah.
it so much. But as Alex Shelley ducks and then he rolls up quickly
Yeah.
Eddie Edwards to pick up the victory. And I was like, you know what? Normally, I hate a schoolboy roll up for a finish, but you know what? In the sense of this, I'm okay with it.
And it wasn't quite a schoolboy because he
Yeah.
got him into a traditional pin,
And then
but
he
it
turned
was
him over a little bit.
yeah, but it was just like enough
Mhm.
that it didn't have that like, oh, it's the same thing we've seen a bunch of times, but it still also like made sense that he got a quick pin out of it. So I kind of liked the slight difference of it. But yeah, it was a good segment to really get into that.
So then, from the fallout from this is Brian Myers immediately jumps in and starts beating up on Alex
Hmm.
Shelley. Alicia comes in, and I was waiting for her to stomp out Alex Shelley. I was like, I would be kind of here for the women, the knockouts to like stomp on the men too. I was like, yes,
Hmm.
give me that equal rights, equal fights feeling. I love it. And so, as they're setting up Alex Shelley to kind of for the Boston Knee Party, Kushida comes out, and then Kushida there was a little bit of a pause, which I was like, "Why is he not?" Oh, okay, there we
Mhm.
go. It was like a couple seconds delay, and then he started beating up, and then they exit the ring, and then we barely get there in time to see Kevin Knight like do freaking flying acrobatics onto Brian Myers, and I'm just like, he got an arc when he jumped off the top rope. I'm like, that is a big man flying because Kevin Knight's kind of tall.
And I like what they're setting up with this because it was funny. One of the things I thought when Alex Shelley came down to the ring was I was like, oh, Alex Shelley's in white tights. He's not normally in white tights. And then when I saw him standing in the ring with Kushida and Knight, a lot of their gear
Also,
is more white
yep.
and like silver. And so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that last image of the three of them, now they look like they're unified. Um, and the three of them wrestling against the system, we could get some really cool matches, and depending on how they
Oh,
divide it all up.
absolutely. And I love the consistency because Kushida has some beef with the system because they attacked him like 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago, and like they try to take him out.
yeah. Well, and
Loved it.
they're friends and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff, and I felt like this was seeing all of this is made more sense to why the knockouts tag match wasn't in the main event, because this is telling the big story of what's going forward with this, with the big faction currently in TNA with the world title and all that, and I also kind of think it also played into the fact that that was Trinity's last match, and it was more of a like we want to focus on the people that are going to be continuing on, and not that they wanted to necessarily take away from Trinity's last match, but it made sense the more I saw of it and the way that this ended. I was like, yeah, this is a good way to end as we go forward in TNA.
Oh, absolutely. And so, since we're still talking about Alex Shelley, we get another digital exclusive later, on social media that basically Alex feels that everything that has happened so far, we can't have any shenanigans, we can't have anything. So at No Surrender, we are going to be implementing no surrender rules, which
Hmm.
means now that the TNA World Championship match between Moose and Alex Shelley is now a no surrenders match, which means the only way for you to lose is for somebody who is in your corner to throw in the towel, which essentially is just making this a glorified no DQ match because it
Yeah.
seems that anything goes, but the only way to lose is somebody has to throw in the towel for you. And I am so excited. I was like, this is a perfect way to kind of close this really weird short chapter between the system and the time
Hmm.
splitters, but then it also adds an extra dimension of what comes afterwards too, because I believe whatever happens between the X Division Championship match is going to dictate what happens next in the storyline. Either we're going to continue to see Alex Shelley and the time splitters face off against the system, or, and I think Andrew and Will kind of agree with me because we talked about this profusely once the match was announced. I think Ali is actually going to go on a short stint as X Division champion
Hmm.
for a bit, since we're getting him at No Surrender, and we get to keep him all the way until I believe after the tapings that happen after the fallout from Sacrifice in March.
Hmm.
So we have Ali for like 6 7 weeks.
Yeah.
uh, Whatever the case may be, I thought this was a really fun main event. This was my match of the night, and I'm actually really excited to have this match at No Surrender be now a No Surrender match.
Yeah. And it's a cool stipulation. It's fun. I like.
We don't get to
I
see it that often.
No. And yeah, it just makes a way for them to tell more story, to play into it. Like obviously they've built up their corners in like kind of the groups that they're assigned with now. So it'll be interesting to see how they use that. And there's a lot of different factors that can play into it. But it gets me excited for the build that we're going to see because obviously we can see some matches between the different groups leading up to it and eventually get
Mhm.
that big match, which the first match was awesome. So I'm excited to see what they're gonna. I mean, they're gonna step it up with this one with that new stipulation.
Oh, absolutely. I'm ready for these two to kill each other, which is something I always look forward to. So that brings us to the end of TNA Wrestling, at least the main show. So before we get into our rating, we do need to talk about some other things. So moving from here on forth, we are here at the Takedown Troop review. Are also going to be reviewing the Explosion episodes, which is basically like a very quick 10-12 minute additional. Like these are your dark matches that happen
Hmm.
before the tapings. So we're going to quickly talk about this. These matches don't factor into our final rating of the actual episode itself, but we want to make sure that all the talent that we get to see on a weekly basis in TNA get their shine. So on this week's Explosion, we had two matches. First off, we had Rhino taking on Champagne Singh. Obviously, Rhino picked up the victory here, which plays into a title match we're getting next week on TNA as Rhino challenges Crazy Steve for the Digital
Mhm.
Media Championship. Listen, I'm just happy to see more Crazy Steve on my television. like, I love Crazy Steve, but as far as this match with Rhino and Champagne Singh, I know what I was expecting. I got it. I'm still slightly underwhelmed. I was like, no, it was fine.
This match was definitely felt more like it was there to set up what happened after the match,
Mhm.
which is fine. So yeah, I mean it was what it was, but I was much more excited about what we're gonna get to see from what happened afterwards.
For sure. And like I said, I'm excited to see this Digital Media Championship match between Rhino and Crazy Steve next week on TNA. It's gonna be great. And then our second match, before we so I have some thoughts about this. So Rich Swan versus Jason Hodge. Rich Swan
Mhm.
loses again. This is
Yeah.
the second week on Explosion that he has lost. I was like, what's going on? Like, what are we doing? Like, I don't listen. I'm not saying Rich Swan should win all the time, but I'm like,
Mhm.
I wonder if there's a plan where he continuously loses and then, oh my gosh, what if he actually turns on Joe Hendry whenever we get the confrontation between Joe and AJ? And AJ's been trying to tell him, but Rich wants to be a good guy, and then he continues to lose.
Yeah, I mean, it is
Happy to
interesting.
yeah. I was
I
happy to see
expect
Jason pick up the win.
Yeah, no, I was totally expecting Rich Swan to win because I mean, you talk about Rich Swan losing, the good hands are always losing too. So, um,
So he
I
played an
was,
Uno reverse card.
yeah, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they're actually going to go somewhere with this story because I feel like they're setting us up for AJ Francis to kind of build a stable, even if it's just the people he's paying to be there. Um, but I like that it wasn't just a like I show up and now I'm just going to get all these people, but that there's actually might be some validity to what he's saying. And it's like, dude, you're a veteran. You've been doing this for how long? How long much have you given to this company? And look where you're at still. Come with me, and not only do we have strength in numbers, but we got strength in money. So if that's what it's setting up, I'm looking into that. And but I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. I hope this wasn't just you know another loss for Rich Swan. Um, and yeah, good on Hutch for getting a victory. And it was a quality match, but yeah, I was definitely a little surprised by who won.
Definitely. And that was your quick review of Explosion. So I'm excited to talk about Explosion because it's very digestible. It's like 12, 15 minutes each week. We get the dark matches that happen at the tapings, which is great. And so what's going to be interesting is TNA next week is we are now officially out of the Orlando tapings.
Hmm.
And I forgot what city wasn't it. What was the second city they went to? Because it's Philadelphia coming up in March, and we already had the tapings in
We had the Vegas
February.
ones, we had the Florida one, and then I don't remember where they're going next
I love it.
or
All right,
where they
hang on.
went next.
We're gonna take a hot minute to because now it's gonna bother me until I figure it out. This is what happens, you guys. You're just like, I want to make sure that I get this correct because I want it to be fine. Because we have the Fallout tapings coming up after No Surrender in Louisiana, so that's not
Hmm.
where they were beforehand. So Philly is in March. Yeah, it's gonna bother me until I figure it out. Yeah, you know what? At this point, it doesn't matter. We are moving on from the Orlando tapings. I believe starting. Yeah, I believe we're moving. No, actually, I take that back. I think we're still in Orlando because they had a long taping schedule in
Hmm.
Orlando for 2 nights. I think we've come to the end of the first night of tapings, and I think we're
Hmm.
starting the second night the next 2 weeks, which also I'm super excited for. And random note, we finally get to see We get to hear from Ash by Elegance. Like, she will actually cut a
Yes.
promo, and I'm like, I love it. I love it so much. It's gonna be great. All right, hey Andrew. Last thing we got to do before we get on out of here, we got to rate this week's TNA episode. So, what did you give this week's TNA?
I give this an 8.3. I thought it was a really solid night of fun matches. And between the matches and the promos that we got, almost every single thing that happened progressed story. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really fun night of matches. There wasn't anything, extremely underwhelming for me. It was fun. It was good. Um, Sad to see that this is Trinity's last night, but yeah, it was a 8.3 for me.
I'm there with you. I will give this a solid like 8.5 for me using my scale. I really enjoyed the wrestling. The backstage segments felt like it didn't drag on for too long. I My only big critiques is that I feel that I wish Alan and Josh got a couple more
Mm,
minutes because I think both of them can really go. It's great. I love the direction that we're going with Khan's character, minus the ears wiggling during the scream shake. I was just reminded, I'm like, oh, he's just an adorable little pit bull.
yeah,
Like, because when pit bulls shake their heads, it's a
yeah,
similar thing. And then, of course, look, I'm all here for PCO and Khan fighting. Joe Hendry, AJ Francis, Diener had my backstage segment of the night. This was the funniest thing. And I was just like, Joe Hendry is a gem, national treasure. Protect that man at all costs. Seriously.
yes,
I really enjoyed myself. 8.5. And I'm so excited. Please give me a good wrestling match between Josh and Simon Gotch. Like, that's
yeah,
what I want to see. I'm like, if you give me that at No Surrender, I will have no complaints. Like, it's so good. But that brings us to the end of this, Sunday edition of the Takedown Troop. We will literally be back recording another episode in like 5 days on a Friday, like on our normal recording schedule. So this is a one-time thing. This is what happens when you have multiple people and lives. How dare us have lives outside of wrestling? Not just kidding. We enjoyed this, and you know, we enjoy what we do. So therefore, that's why we got together on a Sunday morning to do
yeah.
this. So if you enjoyed this and want to see what else we got here at the YouTube channel, make sure to take a look around here at the Viconics Wrestling YouTube channel. Make sure to follow us all over the social medias at BC WrestlePod to get up to date notifications of when videos go live, the funny memes, and just overall shenanigans that you don't get to see. And if you cannot find the time to commit to watching our beautiful faces in video format, you can take and carry our voices with you on the go, as we have audio versions of all of our reviews now on whatever favorite podcasting network you subscribe to: Apple, Spotify. Somehow we made it onto Amazon Music. I was just like, I'm not going to complain about it. It's a great time. And, just listen to us on your way to work while you're studying for a test, when you're doing some homework, or apparently, according to a lot of you, you listen to us when you're taking care of business on the porcelain throne.
Hey,
I'm not,
whatever.
I don't care. Like, as long as you listen and subscribe to us, it's a great time. For myself and Andrew and our missing co host, Will, as well as the rest of the Biconics boys, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, stay Biconic, all you guys, gals, non binary pals, he, she, theys, and gays of the internet. We will see you for the next Takedown review in a couple of days. But until then, ta for now.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's gonna happen next time? Well, you're gonna have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.